Now that we have established the story, let's talk about what makes a good kaiju design and how to make one. The first process in designing a new kaiju, or even redesigning an old one, is reference. Do you have a favorite kaiju design? Does the shape of a particular animal seem to draw you? What features do you appreciate in a kaiju design the most? You should consider all of these before you begin on a new design. This particular design has several inspirations. My first inspiration was bird talons for the hands. For the body, I took inspiration from the Rhedosaurus, the main monster and beast from 20,000 Fathoms. For the bony chest plate, I took inspiration from a recent Destroya redesign I did in the Design All Monsters series. While I was doing that design, I started on doing a classical chest like the one the original Destroya had, but then decided that I would prefer to make the chest look more like crab legs fused together into a singular shell. When I went to design this creature, I realized that I wanted similar armor to give this creature a much more threatening presence and armored appearance. For the face, I took about 4 different inspirations. The main one was Zilla from the movie Godzilla 1998. As much as that design is certainly not really Godzilla, I've always loved it as its own separate kaiju design apart from Godzilla. I especially love the angular look of the face with the prominent chin, which, as I have heard, is another example of designers taking influence from other prominent media, as I believe from what I've heard the prominent chin was inspired by the tiger from the Jungle Book. The second inspiration for the face of my creature was Gamera. One of the things I love most about Gamera's design is his tusks. Thirdly, I would take inspiration from Godzilla by giving my kaiju prominent eyebrows, in this case made of actual bone. Godzilla always has very thick eyebrows that make his face seem extra imposing, so I decided to try to give my kaiju imposing eyebrows as well. For the brightly colored fin running down his head, as funny as it sounds, I was inspired by a chicken. I have a friend who raises chickens, so I get to see chickens a lot. As I have seen the baby chicks grow into full-fledged egg-laying hens, I have been extremely impressed with how large their combs have grown, so when I needed to design facial features for this kaiju, that was in the back of my mind. It also inspired the 3 horns behind the main one, as I was trying to sort of make it look like a chicken's comb, but with horns instead of flesh. For the back legs, I was inspired by horses. I tried to make the back claws look more hoof-like than talon-like. The tail, obviously, is inspired by a scorpion. For the purple poison running down his tail and bony plates, I was inspired both by Shin Godzilla and by the kaiju from Pacific Rim. Firstly, Shin Godzilla was an inspiration because of the purplish pink color, as that is the color of Shin Godzilla's atomic energy, and the fact that in Shin Godzilla you can see the purple popping up in the cracks in his skin. Secondly, Pacific Rim. The reason I count this as an inspiration was because it actually inspired me to try a bold new color scheme. I love the Pacific Rim kaiju designs, but one of the critiques I have about their color scheme is that they are all the same. They have grayish blue skin with glowing blue features, and that sort of dull color scheme applies to all the kaiju in that movie. For me, this is sort of a letdown when compared to the Godzilla franchise, which has a wide variety of colors. From the rainbow-colored robot known as Jet Jaguar to the dark golden black with some blue highlights Kaiser Ghidorah from Final Wars. So, Pacific Rim in this case showed me what I didn't want to do, which was have a boring color scheme. Now that I have walked you through my process of designing a new kaiju, what about naming one? Well, from the stories I have heard about people naming their monsters, I can deduce 3 main methods for naming a kaiju: the Kong method, the Gojira method, and the Titanus Methuselah method. Full disclosure, these are not official methods or official names. The Kong method is very simple. It involves taking a sound that you really like and using that sound in your monster's name. For example, the creator of Kong really liked that hard K sound, so he decided to use it in naming King Kong. The Gojira method is taking 2 or more words that can describe your kaiju and creating a hybrid name out of them. The best example of this is Gojira. Gojira, the original and legendary name for the most famous monster of all time, Godzilla, is actually an amalgamation of the 2 Japanese words Gorira and Kajira. Gorira means gorilla, and Kajira means whale. So Gojira literally means gorilla whale, which is used to describe the creature, which has incredible strength like a gorilla, and is a massive creature that lives in the ocean, like a whale. The third method is the Titanus Methuselah method. This method involves taking a creature or other figure from mythology or religion, and naming your kaiju after that creature. This can be used to evoke certain imagery with your kaiju. For example, if you have a fire monster, naming it Prometheus might be appropriate because the name Prometheus invokes fiery imagery. Or if you have a flying kaiju, you can name it Icarus because that name invokes flight. The Monsterverse, the new American movies with both Kong and Godzilla in them, uses this method for every kaiju except perhaps for the ones that come from Skull Island or the Hollow Earth, or pre-existing Godzilla kaiju. The best examples of this are Titanus Behemoth, a creature mentioned in the Book of Job in the Holy Bible, Titanus Methuselah, the oldest man in the Bible, meant to invoke a sense of ancientness because this kaiju is supposed to be the oldest one in the Monsterverse, Titanus Scylla, named after a Greek sea monster, obviously because Titanus Scylla from the Monsterverse is also a sea monster, and so on. So what method am I going to use for this kaiju? All of them. First, I'm going to start off with the Titanus Methuselah method. For my mythological figure, I'm going to pick one I recently discussed in my documentary, Apophis. Apophis is a giant serpent god from Egyptian mythology who dwells in the underworld. I picked Apophis because of his association with the underworld, aka death. And my kaiju has literal poison running down his veins. That's what the purple is. And of course, poison is associated with death. Taking Apophis as the root word, I now apply the Kong method by slightly tweaking the name. I feel like the second P sound is almost too repetitive and abrasive, and want a softer sound to follow the hard P sound. Almost like the sound tapers off after the P sound. So I changed the second P to a TH to create a th sound, and I get Apophis. But we are not done yet. As I mentioned, we are also going to use the Gojira method, and the word I have in mind is the Japanese word shin. If that sounds familiar, it's because it was used in the title for the Japanese 2016 movie, Shin Godzilla. The word contains several definitions, including an association with evil, which death and the underworld are also associated with. And the word shin can also mean new, and this is a new kaiju after all. So taking the modified name Apophis and adding the title Shin, we get Shin Apophis. I hope you enjoyed that story. If you did, please consider checking out more of my content, such as my new documentary about Godzilla's biology and similar creatures in mythology. And if you really did like this video, then please click that like button, leave a comment, and subscribe to the JPZilla channel.